Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week we should finally finish up the wiring, at least on the engine. Okay, so we'll be getting stuck back into this today. I just wanted to first of all cover a couple of things that kept being brought up in the comments last week, particularly when I was talking about these air filters. A lot of people were wondering how they get the air in, and actually around the base there's actually quite a large gap all the way around for the air to get into the filters itself. This is based off of the factory design. There actually was pretty identical. The MFI cars had this type of setup from factory, so it works quite well. There's lots of airflow able to get in there. People are also concerned that the bell mouths are too close to the top. Again, there's heaps of space in here. There's actually, with what I've done, I've actually given it more space than what it would have had anyway, so not concerned about that at all. This should get plenty of airflow into these, so that should hopefully answer some of those questions. And moving on to what I'm doing today, I talked to you a couple of weeks ago about what I've been doing, looking at replacing the oil pressure switch with an oil pressure sensor that I can then send to the ECU. I can then rewire up the switch again so that the light on the dash still works. I can just send a signal from the ECU and do it that way with one of the outputs. But talking to Raceworks, they came to the rescue again, and Jamie managed to find this sensor, which I believe is actually a Mazda part. It's on a lot of Mazda cars, and this sensor is actually quite cool because it's an oil pressure and oil temperature sensor in one. So I'm going to put this into the car, so this will be great. So they'll actually have a temperature, like an oil temperature signal, to go to the ECU as well, straight through this. So that means getting this in today, and I'll pull the old sensor out, put this one in, and wire this one up. So that's my first job. All right, so this is the switch that I'm swapping out. So this is the factory one here. I actually already wired in the wires, the 3 wires that I needed for the pressure signal, because I have the temperature as well. Basically the 3 wires, one is the 5-volt power, one is the signal ground, and then one is for the signal, the actual pressure signal itself. I just need to run one more wire up from the ECU for a temperature input, so that's pretty easy. So there'll just be a 4th wire, and this switch, it comes with the plug, so I just need to run that last wire it up, put it in, and that should be pretty simple. All right, the gauge is in. It took me ages to try and get the pins into the clip. A lot of these clips sort of come, the plugs come, but they don't really have any instructions on how to actually put them together, and normally you just sort of feed the metal pins in the back and they clip on. In this case, I had to completely disassemble this whole thing. You can sort of feel it's sort of a little bit loose. There's sort of it's made up of multiple pieces. So yes, once I completely disassembled it, it wasn't too hard to put it back together again, but I spent ages trying to get the things to clip in. I didn't know which way up the pin needed to go. Anyway, it's done, it's labelled, it's plugged in. Moving on. Finally, it is all wired. All the sensors are on. It's all done. It is sorted. It is a wired up engine, which is, finally. It's taken a while, but that's the bit on the engine itself. It's still not finished because obviously I've still got to wire it in the car, and even before I get it to the car, I have all these wires here. Now this is coming off of the engine, and I want to make it so that it's nice and easy to get this engine in and out. If I need to drop the engine, I'm going to make it so it's as easy as possible, and that's where I hit up Raceworks yet again and got a couple of bulkhead connectors. So basically what these are so I can run all of these wires through a couple of connectors here, and by doing that, what I can do is, instead of having to unclip this whole loom off of the engine, I can leave everything on the engine, and all I need to do is just unplug a couple of clips in the corner of the engine bay, and the engine is disconnected electrically from everything else. The only issue is that I have to wire up all of these pins, and there's so all of these wires that I've come out with, I now have to go through individually and wire up each one. I've got a couple of different sizes here of the bulkhead connectors. This one is a bigger, heavier duty one, so it can actually take the power's signal. So I'm going to run all the power through these ones, and then all of the sort of the signal stuff through this clip. They do have aluminium ones. They also have plastic ones, depending on what you want. But generally, what you can do is you can set these up either side of the bulkhead of a car. Like, you know, imagine the firewall of the car. You can sort of have it in there, so you can just disconnect the loom from inside to outside. And that's how I'm going to do it. Just in this case, I'm going to have a panel inside in the engine bay that's going to have the solid the car side of it connected to, and just disconnect it from there. I'm not going to have to go underneath the car and sort of have it directly to the ECU. It's going to be easier that way. So I can leave the ECU connected, just disconnect this, and take the engine out. So now begins the very slow and tedious task of wiring up both of these. So let's see how we go. Okay, well, I can see what the rest of my afternoon is going to be like. It's going to be doing a lot of this connecting. So basically what I need to do is go through and wire up both sides of these. And now, as you can imagine, they would be hard to be able to track down which wire is which would be particularly bad on this particular one. You know, there's lots and lots of connections, and thankfully on the back of them they actually have the numbers listed, so you can work out which one's which where you are. And what I'm going to go through, I've got my pad and pen here. This is going to stay with the car, this list, and I'm going to mark down what each number is, so that I make sure I get the same one on both sides, and I'm going to do them one at a time. So I'll do the wire on the engine side and the wire on the engine bay side at the same time. So I'll 1, 2, 2, and so on, and go through and write it all down as I go. So it's going to take me a while. I'm going to start with the bigger wires because it's coarser and a bit easier, and see how we go. Okay, so after some playing, I'm actually a really big fan of these Deutsch connectors. This is the first time I've used them, and they're so much easier than half these other clips to put together, and they're like watertight. They're just a really great idea, a really great concept, and so simple to use. I bought a kit quite a while ago. Raceworks have kits and a whole bunch of stuff, connectors and stuff you can get. Basically, they come with the sort of this is just a regular Deutsch connector here. This has got four points in, 4 points out, so this is just a regular clip I can use on something else. And they clip together. They've got a rubber seal around the end so they can seal up. And to assemble them, I'll run you through that now. So it's probably easiest to see on these big ones, but it's just so simple. And like some of these other clips are really fiddly and difficult to sort of get a good crimp on them, and then trying to get the things in, and it's just a bit of a headache. This is a breeze. So yeah, let me just take you through these now, and I'll show you how simple they really are. It's great. So for these bulkhead connectors, I found that the right length, because I'm cutting them as I go and I want to keep them all the same length, if I cut the wire sort of about halfway through this knurled section here, that gets me the correct length for both ends. So all I need to do is trim the wire, get my strippers out, and just strip off 5 mil or so off the end, maybe a little bit more, 5 or 6 mil. So there I have my prepared wire. One thing I do need to make sure of is make sure you get the right end. Obviously there's a male and female side, they're two different sides, so you have to make sure you get them in the right order. So on this end here, this has got the female plugs on it, so I want to make sure I've got my female plug. And with all the Deutsch connectors, you get, like when you get a kit, you generally get the correct tool. You need to make sure you have the right size tools for the job. This one is a Deutsch 12. So I stick the whole fitting all the way in until it's flush into the crimper. Then all I need to do is stick the wire into the end until it bottoms and crimp down all the way, and that's it. That's it, done. And in this one, I'm going to go into slot E. I just put the wire into slot E until it clicks, and we're done. That is how easy it is. So I'll demonstrate again on this one, just to quickly run you through it. You put the pin all the way into it, stops, the wire out the end, stick it in. It's a ratcheting crimp style, so if you stop part way, you can get a better hold on it. Keep going until it stops. And again, on the back here, now I have my crimp on the back here. I'm just looking for the letter E, which is on the top here. It's in silver. It's probably very hard to see in the camera, but I poke that all the way in, push it all the way through until it clicks, and you're done. There we go. And we have a connector that's wired up. So that is a... that's fantastic. And then when I want to connect it, this particular connector, it lines up and you just twist them together, they lock, clip, and that's it. And this end will obviously be fixed to the car, this end will be fixed to the loom, and I have a nice solid connector here, all done. I am very happy with that. So moving on to the really time-consuming one. Alright, I'm really getting there. It's, I'm getting a bit of a rhythm going. It's actually not that difficult. It's quite sort of just quite cathartic to just sit here and just go through. I'm about halfway now, about 20 odd pins in. It's taken me an hour or so. Not actually as bad as I thought. Not as time consuming. Once you get a rhythm, it's good. So let's keep going. Wow, all right. Well, I got in a zone, and with a lot of patience and just working away, I actually have my plugs all fitted. So my bulkhead connectors are all done. A few hours of work, but I think it's really worthwhile. I mean, yes, you could do this without that, and then every time I want to take the engine out, I could just unplug everything because it's not going to be that often. But I think this is just a much better way of doing it. It's much neater and nicer and tidier. So I'm just going to tidy up these looms now, and then the engine side is completely done. Well, that has been a long slog. Definitely didn't think this was going to take me weeks and weeks to get all this loom done, but I am really happy that I spent the time on it and I did it right. There are a couple of proper connectors that Raceworks have. Actually, they supplied them to me. There's one of them there that sits nicely over all these wires, but because it was such a short run to where it all tees out, I just didn't find it would have gotten in the way. I didn't have room on a loom to sort of slide it back out of the way and bring it back again, but that would have neatened this bit up quite a bit. It is hidden in the back of the engine, and I may do some tidying later just in the wrapping of it, but I am happy with that, and it is done. It is good. We have sensors, we have everything ready, set up for the EFI. Hopefully everything works the way it should, and we can move forward onto fixing this other side into the car. It's getting closer, I tell you. It really is getting closer to the stage where I can actually put this back in the car, and then it's about starting it, isn't it? So, all right, well, as always, if you need any Porsche parts, I've had quite a few people comment to me and message that they've saved a bunch of money on searching for their whatever parts they need for whatever Porsches they've got on PorschePartsByJeff.com. Check it out there, price comparisons, links in the description. Also, if you want to watch these videos a day before everybody else and really help me out keeping these builds up, as you've seen, I've been going mental lately, doing sort of 3 videos a week. I've been away for a little bit and obviously working a lot as well. So there's a lot going on at the moment, and I am trying to keep on top of these things. But yeah, join us on Patreon if you want to do that. All right, guys. As always, I'll see you next time. See ya.